everybody. You've got to think for yourselves. You're all individuals.
Yes, we're all individuals.
You're all different.
Yes, we are all different.
I'm not. You all got to work it out for yourselves.
Yes, we've got to work it out for ourselves.
Exactly. No, that's the point. Don't let anyone tell you what to do. Otherwise, oh no!
Welcome back to the Benji Cow Podcast. This is episode 13. A lucky number or an unlucky number?
What's the title of this episode?
The title of this episode is On 3, 1, 2, 3.
Collectivisms
Hivemans.
and hive minds.
Ah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Collectivism and hive minds.
No, I didn't even think you were gonna say something as simple as hive minds. I thought you were gonna say like something.
No, this is
I don't-
good. This is good. We think differently.
Oh,
That's what makes
indeed.
us who we are,
Absolutely.
which is good.
Very good.
Yeah, it took us a while to get this episode together. You know,
Yes. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you for waiting, all of our loyal viewer. So today we're going to be talking about Pluribus, which is a show that recently came out, and it's about hive minds and everyone as a collective. We'll explain what a hive mind is.
It's number 1 on Apple TV.
Is it? Nice.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So it's just one season. My brother, one of our loyal viewers, shout out, he told me about the show. He hadn't even seen it, but he just heard about it, and so watched it and liked it. And I thought there was, good stuff, good content to talk about,
hmm
good things to think about.
Yeah.
But yes, spoiler alert. It's a recent show, but
It's the most recent thing we've ever talked about, I think.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Beforehand, it was just Groundhog's Day, other movies.
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day. Ah, man.
Yeah, it's okay, Magic.
Never going to get it right.
Yeah.
Day after day. Right. So first, we're going to start off with a bit of a recap.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to?
I'll give it a go.
Okay.
All right, so it starts with this weird signal coming from outer space. It's picked up on Earth, and it turns out that this is some sort of virus that, when it gets into Earth or into things on Earth, and it infects.
I think through the DNA, right? It turns out the signal is a 4-part signal.
Oh yes,
That's how I understood it. Doesn't really explain it, but yeah, the 4 amino acid strands of DNA.
okay. So it's like altering the DNA of people, but it's transmitted through saliva. So I don't really remember how it infects the first person.
Because scientists basically see the signal and they're like, oh, we have to experiment with it. Like, oh, it's DNA. Let's try injecting this into mice. And then eventually it works and it catches. And then it transmits. So it's like, because the scientists were too curious, like
Uh-huh.
curiosity killed the cat. They're just like, we have to do this, even though we have no idea who's sending the signal and what it might do.
Interesting. So they test it on animals and then it transmits from the animals?
Yeah, the mouse bites one of the scientists.
Wow, I do not remember that at all.
Oh, wow.
That-
Okay.
I mean, that must be early in the first episode.
Yeah.
Okay. I think my memory from the first episode begins with the girl licking the donut, licking the
Oh, yeah.
donuts. Like it starts.
So they try to do it like that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They try to spread it through peaceful means, as they say. And
yeah.
then eventually, like, the army catches on and they're about to, like, blow this place up. So instead, they send out, like, a mass neural signal that paralyzes everyone. And I don't know, 1 billion people die just from that incident because airplanes crash,
800 something million.
something like that.
In the second episode, Zosha says it's like 800 something million.
So you remember that? But
Yeah.
not, okay.
No, I remember the show.
The number 800 million.
Well, I clearly don't remember the exact number. It was somewhere over 800 million.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, we're recapping the show, right? We're recapping. So
But it's an important point because the hive mind says that it doesn't want to even hurt a fly later on in the episode. It's supposed to be peaceful, but how it goes about happening is very violent.
okay, I didn't Where does it? Where do you pick up that they wanted to just slowly infect everybody by licking their donuts?
Because Zosha says this. They
Oh,
say
so
we started. She's one of the hive mind's basically representatives.
yeah.
Um,
Well, aren't they all
yeah, they're all representatives,
right? We as us.
but specifically to the main character,
Yeah.
Carol Sturka,
Right.
who, by the way, I heard that the name Sturka is kind of an odd name, right? That in a show to really emphasize the last name so much. Sturka apparently comes from it's a reference to the Twilight Zone episode about hive minds.
Oh, really?
There's someone there called Sturka, Dr. Sturka. I haven't seen it,
I haven't seen
but
it.
just a
seen
bit
it
of
either.
trivia.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting.
It was the show was created by Vince Gilligan. The first few episodes were directed by him. He's the director of Breaking Bad. Great director. It's also based in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just
Mhm.
like Breaking Bad.
Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul. He
Is
loved.
Vince Gilligan from Albuquerque, New Mexico?
I have no idea. Maybe we could look it up, but it's he definitely loves basing his shows there. It makes sense, certainly for Breaking Bad. I think it's very natural for the story to be in the desert. It helps like them keep undercover. Also, this one, I think it's definitely easier to film. If you have to film scenes where there's no one around and nothing happening because
Oh,
everyone's a hive mind,
right.
then using these cities in the middle of nowhere is a lot easier.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, you probably don't want to have Pluribus take place in New York City.
Yeah, there'd be all sorts of things accidentally left in, or maybe.
Maybe, or yeah, like filming the isolation period where they all leave Carol for a bit. Would that be difficult? I don't know. You'd
There's
like
probably CGI anyways, but yeah.
maybe, or maybe you just like block off a block at a time, a couple blocks, and you film a few different shots and make it look through editing like the whole city is abandoned.
Right. That's how like post-apocalyptic movies that take place in New York are done.
Hmm.
It's probably just easier though.
To film it in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we abandoned our synopsis, but we're still summarizing the
Yeah, let's
show. Okay, I'm on Wikipedia, by the way, and I don't see that Vince Gilligan is from New Mexico. He was born in Richmond, Virginia.
So also, Oppenheimer just fell in love with New Mexico and wanted to move the whole project there to develop the atom bomb.
Really?
Yeah. So maybe it's like a similar thing going on. He just loves New Mexico, how in the middle of nowhere it is.
Interesting. Maybe just people who haven't been to New Mexico don't understand. Like I've never been to New Mexico,
Right.
but if I went, I would understand why.
And apologies to anyone listening that's from New Mexico. Maybe it's not the middle of nowhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, it is.
Yeah.
But I should go. I do want to go. I want to see the Trinity test site. I'm pretty sure that's in New Mexico, right? Yeah.
What is that again?
That's where they tested the first atom bomb, and there still are traces of radiation there. But it's only open like
so
3
Oppenheimer
times a
did
year.
succeed. Oppenheimer did put the testing site in New Mexico.
Yeah, he moved it all there because it was like secretive, and
Oh, okay.
but everyone had to move there.
Mhm.
That brought a lot of a lot of business also to the town and developed it, I'm sure, a lot.
Nice.
Right. Synopsis. Hive mind takes over.
Yeah.
And there's 12 survivors. And
Right.
they each deal with the takeover in a different manner. The main character is basically on this arc of very upset.
Well, what does it mean that the hive mind took over? What did that look like?
It was telepathic. Like we mentioned that everyone kind of froze for a few minutes and they're like shaking and having seizures.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very violent. 800,000 people died.
800
Million.
Yeah.
Every I don't know. What do you mean exactly?
I just wanted to not jump over the part where everyone becomes like the same person in this shared consciousness, and just jump over that and then jump to the 12 characters who survived.
Right.
Or
one of the things that don't make so much sense are how are all these humans being updated telepathically? we don't have telepathic abilities as humans. The show kind of explains it as like some human electromagnetic field, but it's kind of nonsense. But
Oh, you're asking how do the humans all like get the signal?
yeah, how are they updated in the first place? Or if you want to use the word killed or lose their individualness, it happens simultaneously and throughout like the existence of the hive mind. They all, they could access each other's. The hive mind could access anyone's memory at once and speak it through someone else. It's all simultaneous, which doesn't make any sense from like a human biological perspective. Um, but in order to have like a pure hive mind, you do have to have telepathy. And later, I want to talk about like lower levels of hive mind that don't have this level of telepathy instantaneousness. But you get what I mean?
Kind of. It's occurring to me why we already are thinking about this differently because we view consciousness differently. So for me, it's like not hard to imagine everyone having the same consciousness because my understanding of consciousness is that it's separate from the body, at least in some way, even though of course it's connected to the body and it's in the way it plays out. Um, so it's I don't know, I didn't have to explain it to myself. I
Mhm.
just yeah, everyone like there's this kind of alien super consciousness that everyone is that person, that they are that consciousness. That consciousness exists in each person.
Okay. I hear what you mean. Um, Obviously, I disagree entirely, but it is interesting that you think about it that way.
Okay.
That like if you do have this consciousness soul thing that exists out of the body, metaphysical, then why not? Like, what's stopping it from just blobbing into everybody's consciousness, sort of thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, also it's maybe a combination of the way I think about consciousness and also just a combination of my willingness to accept the premise of the story. Like I don't need a scientific explanation for the premise of the story.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's the premise. It's like, okay, this is some alien thing that once it infects somebody, they become part of this shared consciousness.
Right. But it does maybe mitigate the fear aspect. Like it can't happen in humans unless we somehow develop this. And there are signaling obviously that humans do to each other through communication, through sound. You don't have to be in physical contact and have physically connected brains in order to have effect on everyone else. You could communicate through pheromones, like chemical releases, communicate through speech and video. We're communicating to people around the world right now, but it's obviously not instantaneous. It's never going to be at that same level of really being able to access any part of me and melding. Like even if I wanted to form a hive mind with everyone, we wouldn't physically be able to get there unless we had some sort of neural link, you know, implanted in our brain. Some of the hardware would have to be updated. That's my point. It's not just a software thing.
Interesting. So when you think of pluribus, you think of it in just purely realistic scientific terms. That there's kind of a way this works scientifically. Like there's no there's no just like, oh, this is just fiction. This is just what it is.
Well,
You
you
get my question?
I can accept the premise, for the sake of exploring the themes and ideas, but I do like to approach it from a feasibility perspective in order to really compare it to what currently exists in the world and how humans currently interact and other species,
Do you think it is feasible?
not without a hardware update. But like I said, that if we all get the Neuralink transmitter implanted in our brain,
What does that mean?
that's Elon Musk's other side project, where the idea is basically a human brain electronic interface or something. It's called BCI, where basically you use brain signals in the brain, which the brain is always giving off. If you ever go to a sleep test or they put these pads on your head that record electrical stimulus in your brain because that's how your brain works. It's just sending electrical signals from one neuron to another.
Mhm.
You could record these. Theoretically, they're very complex signals with many layers on top of each other, and like it's really an open question whether you could totally to what extent and what resolution you could understand the thoughts of the brain through these signals, and then transform those into into some sort of programming that you could do, let's say, on a computer. So you could think the motion to lift something up, and then train yourself to move the mouse around on your computer, just like you can move your fingers on your muscles. So
Cool.
just like the brain sends electrical stimulus to control your muscles, you could theoretically control a computer. You could control a computer, you could connect to the internet. I don't think there's no progress really on receiving thoughts, receiving stimulus. So it's more like a one-way communication thing.
Hmm.
But the Neuralink is what some people have implanted, usually paraplegics or people that suffer from some sort of, a syndrome or not syndrome,
Condition.
condition that stops them from moving their hands or something. So you implant this thing in the brain, it gets a better signal, it's very connected to the brain, and then you could really develop, mechanical arms motions that will really do work for you. So
That is really cool.
yeah, so if that was done to all humans, then it would become much more feasible because that's a hardware update.
Okay. But we said that we don't know how to receive signals into the brain.
Yeah.
But it's-
I'm not sure how feasible it is, even theoretically. But maybe it's possible, to stimulate certain parts of the neurons, is the same idea as receiving signals. They found that during open brain surgery, they would like stimulate parts of the brain, and then the person who is awake would say, "Hey, I just thought of this memory at this time for some reason because it was stimulated." So
wait, while he's in surgery, he would say this?
yeah, because they would keep them awake in order to. I don't know. That's the extent I know about brain surgery. But sometimes they're awake and they have your brain open, and then they're poking it with electrical stimulation,
Nice.
which is also to me more evidence of the everything exists in the brain. Consciousness is in the brain because if you could stimulate parts of the brain and then that affects your conscious your conscious experience, then yeah, it's
But you
all
can
in the brain.
stimulate your foot also. That affects your conscious experience.
Yeah, but not to the same level. Not to like, wait, now I'm thinking of it. Like you could train yourself to ignore the sensations in your foot, ignore pain, you, to some level. But when someone is stimulating externally parts of your brain, and then you're all of a sudden thinking things, then there's nothing you could do to stop it, I think.
Yeah, I don't even think I need. It's not necessary for me to believe that it's possible to stop it. To still view the brain as an instrument that channels the metaphysical. It doesn't mean that all of your consciousness comes from the brain, but the brain is essential to how consciousness manifests in the world. That's for sure.
Hmm. Okay, so let's maybe get more into the. Wait, are we done the synopsis?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
Wait. Okay. So everyone becomes part of a hive mind, except for 12 people on Earth, and this hive mind is very kind. It's immediately obvious that they're very kind. They immediately want to contact Carol. Carol's the main character of the show, and they immediately want to contact her. They once she turns on the TV, there's this message that says, "Hey, call us, and we'll explain everything." And then there's this head of the Department of Agriculture or something, because of course they're not going to use any position in the White House that would be recognizable to anybody. So they have like some kind of obscure position, and he's the only surviving member of the White House. And
Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering if it's a political thing or they just want to avoid that altogether. It's possible.
kinda
I
got
hear both ways. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, oftentimes movies and shows will avoid having the president be a character. Or if they do have them be a character, he'll be like off screen. It's like, oh, the president told me this, and they'll make it completely ambiguous as to who the president is because they don't want it to be dated. First of all, they don't want to necessarily commit themselves to being like in the world where like, oh, Donald Trump is the president, or you know, it takes place 8 years ago, Barack Obama was the president or something. Like it's kind of like ambiguous, like whoever the president is at this
Right.
time, you know. Anyway, that's just
And it's more bipartisan.
yeah, kind of like exactly, kind of like to avoid anyone in the audience thinking like, oh, I can't believe Donald Trump is in this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm wondering, like, if it was the other way around, because Hollywood is usually more left-leaning. But I
Mhm.
don't know about Vince Gilligan. Whatever. We don't have to get into. I think we explored it. But
Okay.
right. So you said they were kind. It's a bit of a stretch because that's, I think, what the whole show is about. Whether this hive mind thing is good in any way.
No, for sure.
But they are definitely honest. They cannot lie. That's what Carol
Well, here,
figures
let me
out.
explain what I mean by kind first, because at least on some level, it subverts your expectation in how kind they are. Because when I initially was told about the show, the person who described the show to me described them as zombies, and I was trying to picture. I didn't know exactly what that meant. I thought, oh, is this a show kind of like The Walking Dead or something, where like they're actual zombies? But he refers to the hive mind people as zombies. And whether you think of them as zombies or whether you think of them as a hive mind or whatever they are, in most stories, I think they're not kind. Often, like we immediately imagine whenever something like this happens in a story, and like, oh, this supernatural thing occurs and a bunch of people die and everyone else kind of like loses themselves and becomes part of this alien thing. We immediately think like, oh, is this dangerous? Are they going to now start hunting the surviving main character and the surviving humans, and do the humans need to run? What's going on here? So it a bit, I think, subverts the genre to have them be, at least on the face of it, very kind and generous and, hey, we just want to help you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they're definitely not zombies in terms of like mindlessness. They retain all the memories, but they lose all of their individualism. They can pinpoint. So it's a question like, is the individual person still in this hive mind? Did it kill him and it's just using his body for its own hive mind consciousness? Or it seems that, it's still in the back of the brain of all of these people, their own individual self. It's just they can't access it.
Where do you see that?
Well, I sort of got that because they could still retain any, like, bring forth any memories from any living or from anyone who joined the hive mind.
Okay.
They can access those memories. So it's not like the brain's dead. It's still there. Like anytime Carol asks a question about, Helen who joined the hive mind before, yeah, maybe it just downloaded all of those memories into everyone else's memories. That's another question. Like, even if the hive mind were to leave, would everyone remember everyone else's experience too? Or can such a thing not even exist in the hardware of the brain at any point? It's
me,
it's a distributed systems of servers and blah blah. Nah.
no, I don't even think of it as a distributed system. I think of it as a master system, which is off somewhere, and it's just a bunch of devices connected to it.
Oh, okay. That's not how I thought of it at all. Well, it all comes back to how I maybe approach it in this more physicalist perspective.
Yeah.
That this signal was broadcast from another planetary system that's physically far away.
Okay.
It probably took millions of light years to reach Earth. So there's nothing, and it was just a signal of 4 repeating notes or whatever.
Okay.
Signals. And so there's no hive mind that came from that planet to enter Earth. It was just assumed that DNA is universal and and that it could be replicated like a virus on Earth, this hive mind signal. And then eventually Earth would also transmit this into space, which I think they say during the
Yeah.
but but there's no entity that's being transmitted. It's just the underlying code that runs the hive mind across the brains. So we're still, this thing that exists is just like a condition in the humans that allows them to all communicate together as one and lose their individuality.
No, because it's also a change in it has its own personality. It's not just as if all humans share data.
Well, it could have its own personality in terms of, a genetic sequence. Like you could change someone's it could be expressing its genetic sequence as kind, just like your DNA for your individual self makes you have, dispositions a certain way or another.
Yeah, I don't know, that's pretty debatable, I think, that foundation that you just set.
So then where's this entity coming from?
Well, it's not really meant to be thought about that much. It's like, to me, it's as if we're supposed to imagine that there's kind of this mothership. Not it doesn't You don't even have to imagine a mothership, but like a conceptual mothership, as if like there's the command ship somewhere. Not even that, even like in story, it doesn't have to be a command ship, but I'm just talking about like the the the, the concept of it, how it works conceptually. That it's just there's this sort of identity, this personality, this alien personality, whatever it is, and everyone is that. We as us, everyone is that same thing, and it's not human. It's this new thing, and everyone is just that consciousness. And because I just so naturally think of consciousness as separate from the body, this is just so natural to think about. And it's because it's fiction, I don't have to worry about how it works. That's just the way that's the premise of the story.
Okay. I mean, I still think that there are interesting questions, A, from looking at it at a physicalist point of view, but
No, for
also
sure.
B, understanding what a hive mind is. Uh, in order to understand what it is, you have to understand how it works, or it helps to understand how it works, at least. Because now we're thinking, wait, is it an external entity, or is it just the expression of all humans coming together and losing all their individuality? If it's an external entity, like you said, then maybe like it's easier to view it as, I don't know, some virus that's hopping planet to planet with its own, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't make a difference. I don't know. Either way, we see this thing as alien, but it's a virus. It's something that happens on Earth. The reason I think about it this way is because I look at instances in the animal kingdom of hive minds to a lower extent.
Mm.
You have locusts, you have birds, you have ants, you have bees, and none of these really have individual desires or individual, like they will die for the collective, and this is a very natural phenomenon that we see in nature, and it's not as if there's this puppet controlling all of them. They're all just programmed a certain way to cooperate, that they can't really help. It's just who they are. It's in their DNA, and they're never going to change. Like it would take years of evolution to change, and there's no chance that this virus from maybe there is, but
There's no chance that what was the end of that sentence?
no, well, that bees, the collectivism, like the entity that controls bees, would start controlling humans. It's not like that's a danger, but the idea behind how bees work genetically, I think that teaches us that there's a part of humans that is also like this, that we sometimes behave like a hive mind, and that this, I think, is getting more and more becoming a realistic scenario for humans.
Wait. Okay, so a lot was just said.
A lot was said,
and then
a bit of runaway, and we still haven't finished the synopsis. But
Okay.
my takeaway, my basic point is this: it is more of a serious possibility that humans will become hive minds, and I didn't used to think of it as such a serious possibility. Now I do. Not that I really said so much about that in the past, in the sentences before that, but it is a natural phenomenon, and therefore humans have an aspect of hive mind to themselves, and there's no external entity.
Well, so in the case of the human, the human has it has considerably more individualism than a bee or an ant.
Sure.
There's much more of a identity there.
Yeah, of course.
There's a lot more personality there.
Of course.
So it's much less natural for us to see the human as in a hive mind because there's to every human we understand that there's such there's a whole layer of individualism to each human, that there's complexity that is unique to them. And so when humans become a hive mind in stories, one of the reasons why it's haunting is because inevitably it means that there's something significant about each human that is lost, right? You in I just started thinking of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Have you ever seen that movie?
Nope.
Okay.
But it's good you've seen it because it sounds relevant.
Yeah,
I've heard of it. Yeah.
you've heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was doing research for like hive minds, I think that was mentioned.
Okay. So in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, when one of the humans turns into one of the alien things, it's a tragic thing in the story. It essentially means that the character died. Even though but they were just replaced by this other entity. No, but no, like this entity is not them. Like even though they are to say that they are now part of a hive mind is actually inaccurate. No, they're gone. They've been replaced by this other entity that is now in the hive mind. That's so with ants we don't feel that way because we view as the ants as naturally being part of a hive mind, or bees or whatever. But with humans, there's something so naturally individual and unique about each human, and to put them in a hive mind is inevitably to destroy what made them human in the first place.
Yes, I agree. But if that's to say that it'll never happen to humans, then I disagree.
It wasn't so much to say that it would never happen to humans, but well, first of all, I am confused as to how it's going to happen to humans in the real world. But that it's not to say that it never would, but it's certainly that there is a greater obstacle with humans than with simpler animals, simpler organisms. There's quite a bit more resistance to a human becoming part of a hive mind due to all of what makes us unique.
For sure. But here's how I would see it happening and how I currently see it happen. We used to all exist, as little tribes in our own little towns, or not even towns. We would just move around. And even back then, we were very collectivist, doing whatever the tribe told us to do, like fulfilling our role, whatever it was, if that's hunter, gatherer, uh, sewing, or whatever it is. We all had roles, we all played them. And I wasn't around, so I don't know for sure, but sacrificing yourself for the good of the tribe probably wasn't that unheard of. And if you were an individual that went off on your own, you were shunned. That was considered probably a big shame to be an outcast, exiled. You see it in wolves. Wolves exist as a pack. Lions, there's always the outcast. From the lions are in a pride, but if you're not fitting in, then you get outcast. So that's how humans existed, and then we started coming together in towns through the agricultural revolution. We started existing in cities together, and then the population increased more and more. We stayed more concentrated, and there were still roles that everyone played in everyday life until the last century, when it's more of, I think, an outlier that we are individualistic. In the last century, we had more time to. Kids didn't just go to war; they went to school for a long time. Music was more developed, and people went off to explore. Religion and culture had less of a overpowering control of people's lives. People wanted to explore themselves, and they would go off and leave their communities. But it wasn't the death sentence that it used to be in the past, and it was even encouraged to be more collective, to be more individualistic, especially in Western nations, which we're more familiar with. There are still lots of nations out there that are more collectivist that never even got there. Everything is just for your family, for your community. You can't just leave, otherwise you're you're never welcome back, sort of thing. Or there just was nothing to do. If you can't just go out and join another community, that's extremely difficult. There's nothing um, really for that. But you had these different sort of communities popping up that you could leave your community and, if you want to become a musician, you become a part of this community of musicians. So it's still intrinsic in human nature to become part of something else. If you're going to leave your religious community, you're going to join a different community based off of some similar thing. So humans crave this togetherness, this community, and it's just an intrinsic part of us. And another thing that happened was globalism. We started, as countries got bigger, technology grew, technology developed to be able to communicate, not just through letters, through instantaneous electronic signals. Now we're all talking to each other, sending messages back and forth instantaneously, like a hive mind. And we're all becoming part of, their communities online to be part of. I feel like we're all spending more time in front of our digital devices, being part of something else, not just following our own creative paths. We're just consuming content that everyone else is consuming on a mass level. So the amount of brain use that we use for our individual pursuits has decreased significantly. And at least in my life experience and from what I see from other people's life experiences, it's all about everyone's life is about consuming and other things and being part of community for other things. And it just seems this trend, we're not there yet. I think we're like in a middle ground between fighting for our individuality and fighting for, and the collectivism still taking over. But I see this trend, inevitable trend, that we are going to go to Neuralink one day because we just want to go there. We're just, people always want to go to the next step of technology. We didn't used to have phones in our pockets. Now we do. We just have to be connected at all times. It's just this intrinsic desire. So eventually we're going to plug these things into our brain. We're all going to be connected to the internet at any time. It's just going to be understood if you want to have a job that you have to have your Neuralink implanted, just like you have to have your phone on you at all times. And then we're just going to be communicating more and more, and more collective ideas will get bigger and bigger, and we're just going to eventually merge into one big thing. I don't know what it exactly looks like, but it's going to look like a hive mind.
There's a final step that I have an issue with there, where it's like we get more and more connected, and then the merging. The merging, like we could be all telepathically connected for all I care, and I would still view us as individuals as long as we have our individual identities and as long as we have free will and a soul, which I realize are not things taken as given in this present company. But the point is, I would continue to view us as individuals unless something fundamentally changed. So the mere connectivity doesn't make it more of a hive mind in my mind.
So there's also the aspect of just not spending time exploring ourselves and just rotting our brains in front of TV and social media. So I think that's a runaway effect that even if we do have our individual brains, even if there's no entity like literally locking it down, I feel like algorithmically we're pushing. There's no need to explore ourselves as much. We're not as bored. We could just watch something else, entertain ourselves, and then our brains are not. We're just not using our individual selves anymore, and then they just become irrelevant.
Yeah, but I still don't view that as a hive mind. I think I think because we think of consciousness so differently, we think of the hive mind so differently. To me, the hive mind has to be some radical shift in the conscious nature of people. Whereas, meaning simply everyone kind of deteriorating and rotting away in front of the TV, even if they all sort of rotted away towards just like the basic psychology of people. So everyone started to look the same and act the same just because everyone had no longer did anything individual. I still wouldn't think that I still wouldn't see that as a hive mind. I would just see that as each person on an individual level is not living their best selves and is kind of rotting away. And the fact that it happens to look the same it just happens to look the same. Like fundamentally, though, it's not as if everyone's consciousnesses have been merged. Because in order for that to happen, there has to be some like radical change to our consciousnesses for them to merge.
Okay, but to me, it's equally terrifying. And if it
Oh,
looks the
I'm not saying
same,
I'm not saying it's not equally
right,
terrifying.
right. So maybe on a fundamental level, it's not exactly the hive mind you're thinking. Um, it's not the exact hive mind that's in the show, right? For sure, but it's more of the realistic one. And a lot of the themes that we see in the show should scare us, I guess, as much as this slow takeover that doesn't really lead to the equivalent hive mind. But in my mind, as I see it, hive minds are this hierarchy of or different extents of hive mind. So it would be like a to some extent hive mind, and it would be scary.
I accept that it would be scary. It depends kind of like in what way we're talking. Are we talking kind of poetically and mythically, or are we talking like actual realistically? Realistically, I don't view it as a hive mind, but if we're talking poetically, then yeah, I definitely view that. I definitely see the similarity, and I appreciate that we can take lessons from Pluribus about the dangers of losing our individuality and losing what it means to be human and just becoming all the same person, and take those lessons and realize that that problem can appear in a lot of different ways without the exact hive mind type scenario that Pluribus shows.
Okay, all right, that's good. Um, so maybe we'll talk a bit more about specifics of Pluribus. I don't, unless you want to cover more of the synopsis.
Should we finish the synopsis?
Or maybe
3
there's
hours
fewer
later.
spoilers for our viewers.
We're not going to spoil the show. We're going to spoil the show.
We're gonna spoil probably,
We're going to spoil the show.
but we don't have to necessarily. Like we could go through more of like points that we want to talk about and spoil them inadvertently, rather than just finish like say exactly what happens in the show.
Okay. We'll assume that you've watched the show, in which case you don't need a synopsis. Or we'll assume you haven't watched the show, in which case we're not going to give you a synopsis so as not to spoil everything at once.
Yeah. So win-win.
But either way, keep listening to us.
Exactly. So let's talk maybe about the 12 survivors.
Yes.
So I like that. I thought that the rarity of survivors being 1 in a billion about is good because it creates a sense of isolation
Hmm.
for each one. Like if it was hundreds, then they would try to band together more, maybe, or if it was thousands. And also, it being 1 in a billion means that like maybe this is something hive minds from other planets really didn't encounter before. Uh,
Okay.
Maybe that's something.
Maybe.
And this sense of isolation, um, allows them to kind of fall in love with the hive mind a bit. In the show, we see this, uh, and out of pure loneliness. And if it was too many, then maybe they would band together and defeat the hive mind easier. So it's a good amount. That makes sense. And in the show,
It also, I think, by the way, you mentioned isolation, which when there are 12, it kind of is believable and makes sense that there's no other fluent English speaker that survives. Meaning there are fluent English speakers, but they're all as a second language, second or third language. Like there's no other like person from an Anglo country who survives. So that also, I think, is part of what makes Carol feel more alone. Um, and making it 12 made that scenario more believable. Where
yeah, and it's more realistic. It spreads them out over Earth, how it should be if it's completely random. I feel like other movies would have them all, like maybe more in the past they would just have them all be in New York or something. Like,
yeah,
so they all
there's probably less ability to
film
get
internationally.
film internationally and also get you know actors from all sorts of countries to play in your movie.
Maybe. So they all get together. Carol asks the hive mind to get them all together. She wants to talk to them. And the hive mind, and this is something that is also really weird to me. Like you said, the hive mind's kind, but it also like listens to whatever she wants. It wants to make her happy, and here's a spoiler that wants to also turn them into the hive mind,
Mhm.
but like in a completely non-violent way. Um, but
It's a biological imperative.
yeah, but it's right in the show they say
They
that,
say.
but it's just weird from a evolutionary outlook that they should be so kind to the survivors. Um, it's consistent with the idea that they don't want to harm anything, but why don't they want to harm anything? For its own good, the hive mind should just eliminate any survivors, especially if they start to show like feelings of rebelliousness to the hive mind. Just eliminate them because if they're not part of the hive mind, then they're bad. If they're trying to destroy the hive mind, then they're bad. It doesn't make any sense why they'd let them live and then risk the chance that this survivor will, I don't know, kill them all or reset them all.
Well, that's also part of why I don't view the hive mind as just this natural thing. Like it's just this weird science. This weird thing is happening physically with all humans, and they all think they're connected or something. Like it's I view the hive mind in Pluribus as this character. It's a character that is like not human. It's
Okay, but
some
even if it's a
personality.
character, why? Okay, in the show, there's something that if Carol or anyone gets upset at one of the people in the hive mind, then they'll start having a seizure, and everyone in the world will have a seizure
Yeah.
in the hive mind. Uh, and then people will die as a result if, people fall during the seizure or whatever. If that's a danger to the hive mind, then in self-defense, it makes sense to take out Carol so that she doesn't risk killing so many of the hive mind. It's like the hive mind is suicidal. Uh, it won't even like pick an apple from a tree. It might starve.
Hmm.
Um, they wind up like
It is starving.
well, it's eating currently in the first season, as far as we know, it's eating whatever's left, and creating like a slurry of the basic nutrients that each person needs.
HDP.
HTP. We could get into that, but
I'm John Cena. This is HTP. Exactly what it sounds like.
you're probably wondering, Carol, and we have answers for you. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter if it's like an external entity or not. It seems in self-defense to make sense to get rid of any survivors and not just like do whatever they want and keep them happy.
Well, that's the thing. Unless it has this personality, or it has kind of like a religious nature, it has like beliefs about what's right and wrong that override biological instincts.
Right. And you're probably, this is not how you see it because we've been over this, but how I see the biological imperative, you're probably say, "Oh, well, that's how it is. That's what it is. It's just like that."
What are we talking about?
Why it has to be kind, why it can't hurt anything. I was trying to think, wait, why would such a thing evolve to not need
Oh,
to harm anything?
okay, interesting.
Something I don't know if you considered.
No, I didn't really consider that.
Right.
But that's good. That's why we talk.
Yes.
Broaden our minds.
Exactly. So I compared it to how, let's say, religions, I mean, I don't know if we're ready to get into this yet, but religions are all, at least nowadays, they're all about portraying themselves as peaceful,
Mm,
even if they're not necessarily. Because if they portray themselves as violent, then people are going to not be okay with that and they're going to fight back. It's better to say, "Oh, we're peaceful," and spreading through peace is evolutionarily advantageous.
mm,
I liken it to the games that you play. If you play Risk or Settlers, you're all in, trying to take over the world. As take over, let's say in Risk, you take over someone's country, your region expands. If you are the number one threat, then everyone will team up against you and defeat you.
hmm
So one of the strategies when playing this game is to always be like in second. You don't want to be in last in terms of just accumulating points and becoming a threat. You want to be in second place so that when everyone teams up against the biggest threat, so that it improves their chances of winning, you swoop in at the end.
Yeah.
At least that's how I view games like Settlers and stuff. So you want to convince everyone that you're not a threat, someone else is, but then ultimately take over. Religions will similarly do that. Cultures. It used to be that if you do want to spread, you do just you're violent and that's it. Religions, cultures spread violently in the past. Some peaceful, some violently, whatever it was.
Hmm.
But being violent was never a hindrance because people couldn't really uh, cooperate. I mean, they could cooperate. They would, if you look at things in the Roman Empire, instances they would cooperate against bigger threats. But that requires a lot of communication and stuff. But just being faster and more violent works as well, or did work in the past. Still works nowadays. Point is just that if you want to take over, portraying that you're peaceful isn't as dumb as it sounds.
No, yeah, it's a good point.
And acting peacefully or trying to act peacefully. But ultimately, the hive mind is not peaceful or does not come about peacefully. A, because billions of people or a billion people died when it took over. And B, even if it was completely instantaneous without anyone dying, it still killed everyone's individual sense of self.
Right. As Carol says in episode 2, I don't remember anybody getting a vote as to whether they wanted this to happen.
Exactly. So that's another thing, like how much personal choice is there when, even if you're born into religion, if you just feel the pressure of religion growing up or joining because you don't want to be an outcast, yeah, you're making an individual choice, but you're still being pressured. It's not like you often have so much choice in the matter. At least maybe nowadays it's different, maybe it's not. Not sure. Depends on a lot of factors.
I want to get into that later, but I want to address the point first about the hive mind evolving to be nice, evolving to present themselves as peaceful in the very least. In a previous episode of the Benji and Cal podcast, I forget which number, we talked about a Veritasium video that discusses
Game
theory, and it discusses the
cooperation.
yes the way people behave if left to play right, if left to kind of if you run these simulations of the ability to I forget the words, but to attack versus cooperate, to take
Advantage or
sure take
no,
advantage or cooperate,
right.
meaning if you take advantage and the other player cooperated, you get the most. If you both cooperate, you both get a little bit. And if you both take advantage, you get the least. Or well, you get the least if the other person took advantage when you cooperated. But if you both take advantage, you also don't get much, or you lose a little bit. The point is that it's the second worst option. And so the optimal strategy that ends up is tit for tat, which basically means cooperate as long as your opponent is willing to cooperate. But as soon as your opponent attacks you, attack back. But only attack back once, and then forgive. And then if they cooperate afterwards, continue to cooperate with them. And it's a very fascinating video. We mentioned it before in our previous episode that you should check it out. Anybody, it's really a cool video. It really gets to the heart of some very fundamental, deep, interesting truths about the reality we live in. But I'll point out that that the hive mind in Pluribus doesn't follow tit for tat.
It doesn't?
No, the hive mind in Pluribus does not attack back if you attack it. It's a pushover.
Well, there is the point when Carol loses it and yells at her at the hive mind, and then the hive mind says, maybe you could say it.
Hi, Carol. This is a recording. You can leave a message, and we'll try to provide you with anything you need. Our feelings for you haven't changed, Carol. But after everything that's happened, we just feel we need a little space. I think I shortened it a bit. I think it's like one sentence longer. There's another sentence in there somewhere, but it's something like that.
And yeah, so she would like call the hive mind every time she needed something because the hive mind went away from her because she kept antagonizing it. And I do want to just say I thought it was super annoying that we had to hear that message
I know.
like 100 times. Like, why couldn't she just request that? She hated listening to that.
Yeah,
Maybe they just needed they wanted to make it a thing,
right.
like a meme, but it's just she could have requested, okay, can you just make this message shorter? I got it.
Yeah, she could have, or the show could have just cut. Like, you just have to show it. She just has to pull up her phone. We hear, "Hi, Carol. This is a recording," and then you could just have a cut to, and then she's talking to them. Like, and we get it. Like, the show doesn't have to show it every time.
Yeah, no, it was clearly intentional, and just to kind of drive the viewer nuts, but also maybe give the viewer a sense of the isolation that Carol and the annoyance that Carol is feeling,
Maybe.
because it does it gets kind of quiet for a few episodes. Not much happens.
Yeah.
Not to say it's boring. It's just like it gets you into that sense of New Mexico. Nothing is, or the world. Everything. She's in isolation. Wolves start to like come out and attack her. Wildlife comes out, and they start delivering things by drone to her.
Yeah, yeah.
That was definitely a meme that they love doing. Because then you just see the drone that crashed like also later, just still stuck in that telephone pole or the light
Oh,
pole.
you do?
Yeah,
I
I
missed
don't
that.
know if it like on set it crashed and then they just left it there, whatever it is.
No, I assume
Yeah.
they wanted that to stay there.
But the point is, also in Breaking Bad, they had a similar thing where Hal, Bryan Cranston, he throws the pizza on the roof.
Walter.
Walter White.
Yeah.
He throws the pizza on the roof,
Uh-huh.
and like he just got it right the first try, throwing this massive pizza on the roof in frustration, and then they left it there for like later episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You see it later?
Yeah, and you see like someone cleaning it off, and so it's just classic Vince Gilligan shenanigans.
Uh-huh.
But anyways, I got the feeling that the hive mind was saying to Carol, "Hey, screw you, we're leaving you. You're going to become lonely. That's what you get for not cooperating." Not
That's not at
not
all.
in like a mean way, but it's just like this can't happen. It, and so it was forgiving, definitely, but it was still tit for tat. It's not just complete pushover that it would just let Carol. It was sort of a pushover, but it wouldn't just let Carol like yell at it. Like it had its limits.
So I disagree. I think the only limit for the hive mind was its own existence, right? When Carol drugs Zosha and tries to get her to literally explain to Carol how to stop the hive mind, that was only too much because the hive mind's only limit was we have to protect our own existence. We're not going to let Carol kill us. But beyond that, they are not tit for tat. They have like they're fine with Carol bossing them around, insulting them, humiliating them. I'm not even sure they feel these things. I don't think they feel humiliated.
Right, but that's why it's not a matter of tit for tat. Like being bossed around, taking care of Carol, it doesn't feel like it's losing. But when its existence is at stake, when she's yelling at it and causing them to go into seizures, then it does consider that a threat, and so then it reacts accordingly.
I think that even so, when the threat is so in their face, I think they respond just because, just the way we all do. It's like the hierarchy of human needs, right? When we are safe and secure and we're getting enough food and we don't have any major crisis going on, well, then we can kind of develop kind of higher values and ethics and try to become better people. And these become the things we care about when everything else is taken care of. But once, like, oh my gosh, there's like a guy with a knife like charging me, that's the only thing I'll be aware of at that moment. Like everything else goes out the window. So I think that's the way it is for the hive mind, that this threat of Carol, what did she use on Zosha?
Some sort of drug. Was it like a truth
Truth serum.
serum drug or something?
Veritaserum.
Veritaserum.
No, I thought it was like some recognizable drug. I forget what the name of it was. I thought it was like something like, I don't know,
Maybe it
heroin.
might have been
I think it was heroin.
I don't know if it was her. I think it was like date rape or something. No, because
Don't remember that being
she.
mentioned.
Well, no, they don't mention it, but I think they have the label on the bottle. I forget what it actually is. We could look it up, but it. She took it herself and recorded herself,
Yeah.
and she, started crying and said but she was like very honest about uh her isolation and what she was going through. So it basically made her just talk a lot about her and let go of things. So whatever drug does that, that's what she gave her, which
Uh, so the AI overview on Google says that Carol uses sodium thiopental, which is also known by the brand name pentothal.
okay. And does it say what it does?
It's an injectable barbiturate used as a general anesthetic from the hospital pharmacy. She uses it as a form of truth serum in an attempt to force Zosha, a member of the hive mind, to reveal how to reverse the joining.
Okay, so it relaxes you and puts you in a state of, I don't know, maybe just saying everything that you're asked.
Mm-hmm.
He does. I'm sure he has a cast of people that he could ask by these questions about chemistry. Consultants left over from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I'm sure. Um, anyway, so my point there was just that the the hive mind does not behave in a way that is, at least on the face of it, in their interest. It seems to have all these other neuroses, we can call them, or beliefs about how it should behave and how it should treat the world and plants and other people. And it is not tit for tat, I don't think. I think it's very much a pushover. I think they won't even raise a finger in their defense um, if someone's attacking them. Even if someone is doing the angry thing and making them all freeze. Um, they'll the only thing they will do is they will leave for their survival, but they still won't harm the person attacking them. They will simply disengage and try to go somewhere else so that they can survive.
Right. It's okay. I agree that it's like so extreme in its belief that it can't hurt anyone, that it will allow itself to be harmed a bit. But I don't think it considers, maybe it does, it considers, taking care of these 12 survivors as not a loss to it, but as a waste. Because if you remember the episode where one of the survivors um, wants to be converted to the hive mind because she's just so unhappy,
Kusimayu.
Kusuma, I knew that I predicted this was going to happen. Like she's given the serum or whatever to ingest or smell to convert her, and it's like this big suspenseful moment. What's going to happen? Is she going to like die? Is it not going to work? And I was like, it's going to work, and they're just going to pack up and leave. And that's exactly what happened
Nice.
because it wasn't. The tragedy is that she requested the hive mind to still be at her parents and community around her in Nepal or wherever it was, and
Peru.
Peru. Whoops.
It's okay.
Whoops. Apologize to all our Nepalese and Peruvian listeners.
I'm sure we have many of those.
Yeah. So, she wanted them to recite their chants and live in their tents with their goats and whatever. And then the second she joins the hive mind, there's no reason for this anymore.
Right.
Just pack up. It's a matter of efficiency.
Yeah.
Just go in. They all sleep in like a gym or something.
Yeah.
No one sleeps in their homes anymore to conserve electricity. So the hive mind definitely has it has its dogmas, its core beliefs, principles. Don't hurt anyone and or anything really. Convert as many people as possible. Humans only for not animals, I guess.
Hmm.
Which is a little odd. Why does it love humans so much as part of the hive mind? Why not animals? But you have your differences with humans and animals and consciousness and whatever souls.
Yeah, I just view it as it's incompatible software.
Hardware.
Incompatible hardware, software.
Okay, yeah, sure. I get what you're saying.
Right.
But like, why not? I don't know. To me, it's brain matter. It's not like anything specific is needed from the human brain side of things. Um, if it could communicate telepathically, why not join with your dog? Why not join to the dog and use the dog to run missions for you? I don't know. But yeah, that's the tragedy is not only that she like kills her individual self, but that like the hive mind doesn't care at all about anything.
Right. It was all
I,
it was all performative.
performative. Yeah, it was just fake. This
Yeah.
whole being kind, and uh, I'm not even sure what. So the hive mind cares about not harming things and just spreading, right? And surviving as long as possible, but not
Yeah.
so much. It doesn't care that much about survival, in that it's not willing to harm other things in order to survive, unless it's killing
Well,
humans.
I think we don't know that. Well, because it's clear from season 1 that the hive mind, at least if things continue in the way they seem to be going, that the hive mind is going to reach a conflict of their values with if the food supply, diminishes enough on Earth, they're going to reach a conflict of their values of not harvesting grain and picking an apple from a tree versus surviving. At the moment, they don't have to face that, at least they're confronting it as like a future thing that is a
Hmm.
bit of a concern, but they're not facing it like it's right in front of them. So at the moment, they can continue to like not pick apples from trees because like yeah, well we have enough food for now. We don't have to face that yet.
Right. And probably why like the show had to do something so ridiculous as the hive mind not wanting to pick apples, is because it wants to steer towards this conflict. Like, is the hive mind harmful or not? Like, even if it says it's not harmful, like, will it eventually harm things to spread? It has these two principles: spread, don't harm. But ultimately, I think we're going to see, like you said, that it's going to harm.
That its survival
It's
is going to be more important than
Yeah,
non-harming.
exactly. Because all the idea of a hive mind is ultimately harmful, even if it like pretends to not be. And if it was able to be vegetarian, then it might never have to actually face this conflict. It would just farm and just be vegetarian forever.
Hmm.
So this forces the narrative of the story towards that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's important because of how the 12 survivors also deal with it. Because, and that's what I want to talk a bit more about now, how the 12 survivors approach. So we spoke about approach the whole hive mind problem. One of them wanted to just become part of the hive mind. We had others that um, just wanted to live their lives, and even though their family was hive mind, they wanted them to pretend to not be, and they would get upset, if Carol would say, "That's not your son,
Hmm.
that's the hive mind." We had other people that would just take advantage of the whole situation and live in Las Vegas with everyone they want and spend all money living out their fantasies because they could do anything, go anywhere, fly on Air Force One.
Hmm.
um, so one of the things that Carol's trying to explain to these people is that no, the hive mind is something that's dangerous, even if it pretends to not be. And,
Actually, so I think Carol, um, I'm not sure even in the beginning of season 1 whether she's convinced that it's dangerous, even if it pretends to not be. I don't know if maybe she at least worries that there's something sinister going on underneath all of this apparent kindness. But even if it was the case that they are genuinely as kind as they seem to be, this is still wrong.
Mhm.
I think that's Carol's position.
Right. Well, yeah, I think you're right that it takes us through this up and down, like, wait, no, the hive mind's not kind, like it's trying to kill people. And then it's like, no, we didn't mean to as an accident. If we could have done this peacefully, we would have.
Hmm.
And then she finds out that they're consuming humans. And
Yeah.
she's like, there you go, there's the evidence. And then everyone's like, no, it's actually more efficient this way. They're only like eating people that died already.
Yeah.
This way they don't have to harm anything that's still growing, and that's what John Cena explains.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, okay, so we're back to base one. And then Carol's kind of like, she's like, and then it eventually leaves Carol, and then she's like, okay, I just gotta I'm so lonely. I'm just gonna actually embrace this. And it
Mhm.
takes the other character who we haven't spoken about.
Manusus.
What's his name?
Manusus Oviedo.
Menusa.
He literally says it like 100 times.
I
in one of the
remember
episodes.
Menusa. I thought it was Menusa. You said Menusos?
Manusos. My
Menusos.
name is Manusus Oviedo.
And he's a very
You killed
interesting
my father.
character as well.
Prepared.
And so he doesn't. Garosturka.
Chaos Torka.
Snap, snap.
What is this?
With his, let
Atom
us
bomb.
save the world. That's the other thing. The atom bomb.
Wait. Are we jumping around? Or we don't have to get to the atom bomb right now. Were you in the middle of something?
Well, I was in the middle of like whether it's dangerous or not.
Okay.
And ultimately, like, yeah, at the end of season 1, okay, Carol just realizes how dumb and dangerous this thing actually is. It's going to starve. And there's this whole idea of this atom bomb. She's like, if I could ask for anything, you'll give it to me. They're like, yeah, why not? The hive mind. And she's like, what about an atom bomb? And they're like, yeah, sure. And she like still doesn't believe it until the end when
It would be fine to say no at this point.
at this exactly. And because she doesn't even that's the thing that also I don't understand, and that I was still struggling with the significance of the atom bomb, because you were just saying uh, like it has its line when its own life is at stake. But why would it give her an atom bomb? She can't fathom why you would give her an atom bomb. I can't fathom why you would give them an atom bomb.
Because the atom bomb doesn't truly threaten the hive mind. Losing members of the hive mind is not what threatens the hive mind. I think the hive mind is okay with that. If the human, and that's why they're willing to freeze them to become frozen, by Carol getting angry. Except when it got to the point where Carol was actually getting to a point where she was figuring out how to
So
stop
you're
them.
saying the line was when they understood that she was trying to kill the entire hive mind.
Yes, to kill the
Not just convert Zosha. I thought she was trying to get information out of Zosha, but I didn't see that discrepancy until you pointed it out. So like it wouldn't even mind if she converted just Zosha, you're saying? Which she tries to do sometimes.
Convert Zosha back to being a human.
Yeah, she tries to like get Zosha as the representative. We said, and the love interest sort of, and she tries to get Zosha to talk to her like an individual.
Yeah.
Use the word I instead of we.
Oh, we didn't mention that. They always talk in we.
And we, yeah. Well, yeah, it makes sense. But she tells Zosha, tell me about a time when you were young. Like, do you like ice cream? And Zosha says, well, the individual I was before grew up eating ice cream. And then she starts to kind of recollect this memory of her and her dad, and that was very important to her. And she kind of loses herself away from the hive mind. And I saw that as like a significant step, showing that the individual is still in there somewhere fighting to get out.
Yeah.
And that they can be converted left. So they're converted back. So they're not dead. So that's how I see the show ending. Like they're going to convert them back.
Yeah. Well, it makes it explicit in the final episode of season 1 that the original person is still in there.
But it's clear.
Yeah.
You were saying also that. How do I see that? Okay, yeah. Why do you think it's clear?
I wasn't asking how you see it as if it's not as if it doesn't exist. I was asking just for your citation.
Okay. I believe you. I just want to know. Yeah. No, I understand.
But no, Manusis has his whole radio receptors device thing, and he figures out that there's like, especially when he turns them off, sort of, so to speak, by being angry towards one of them, and then they kind of turn off. So I think what's going on there is that both consciousnesses have kind of like are not manifesting. The body is just kind of limp. And then when the body comes to again, the hive mind consciousness is back. But Manusis realizes that when the body is in that state and the hive mind consciousness is kind of turned off, he can at least get more of a signal from the original consciousness.
Right. Okay, yeah, I remember that. I just didn't think that like at least my perception of it wasn't that he was really getting through to the person. I still saw the person having a seizure. I didn't see him actually say anything, but like it hinted towards it.
The show doesn't tell us explicitly that he actually heard Manusis.
Mhm.
But the fact that they've been setting up Manusis's radio signal calculation thing, and then his conclusion at the end is that yes, I'm getting some other signal that becomes stronger when I do this to them, and I'm convinced that that is the original signal, sort of the original consciousness. I mean, if this was happening in the real world, we could say, okay, well maybe this is all just Manusis being wrong, but because it's a show,
Right. It's definitely hinting.
they wouldn't set all
towards
this
it.
up if this wasn't.
Yeah.
what was
So
going- yeah.
let's talk a bit about Manusis.
He's my favorite.
Yeah, I assumed. So
My name is Manusis Oviedo.
so there's this guy that didn't meet with Carol originally because he doesn't speak English. He lives in South America, and he just refuses for the first few days to even interact with the hive mind.
Mhm.
He sees it as a zombie apocalypse. He doesn't trust them. He's eating like dog food rather than the food that the hive mind is bringing to him, which makes sense because you don't know, maybe in the food is something to convert him to the hive mind. Carol
Yeah.
does try making contact with him, but he doesn't trust her. He doesn't trust anyone. To me, it was like past the point of rationality because he was like starving himself and not even like he could have died from just avoiding the hive mind so much.
Yeah.
And so he like suffered because he didn't just like figure out and talk to Carol or the hive mind and find out that they could that they couldn't lie. But okay, sure, if it was a zombie apocalypse, then he would die instantly. But so I can't really judge. But his whole principle, which and this part I definitely disagree with, is that whenever he would like he would say nothing. He would tell the hive mind, "None of this is yours." Even as the hive mind would try to help him,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "Oh, you're trying to get to Carol. Let's help you." He's like, "No, stay away." Um, I'm not sure he doesn't actually kill them. I'm not sure why not. Well, I know why not. I'm not, but it depends on whether he believes they're still in there. So I feel like if he knew that the people of the hive mind were dead inside, then he would kill them. But maybe he thinks that there's a chance of saving them. I'm not sure because he's also fine with yelling at them and making them all seize.
But he warns them before.
He does warn them before. That's true. I forgot about that. And we also don't know about that until later.
Mhm.
So, but his thing is like if he needs gas, then he'll put money in the window of the car that he had to steal the gas from,
Yeah.
and he like has to break into the lockers in order to find food to survive, and he leaves money there like an IOU or something,
Mm-hmm.
which is insane to me.
When he's treated by the hospital
He pays leaves an IOU or something.
for like $10,000 or something.
Yeah. It's insane because money means nothing at this point. You're in a post-apocalyptic world. Your money's worthless, and it's just ridiculously pedantic. And if you're going to save the world, everyone would agree, take billions of dollars. Like, it doesn't matter. Just save the world, you know? Why are you worried? Like, if this is a hindrance, they would be upset at him for not, like for not doing something because he feels that it's not his or that he's stealing. But that's his character. It's to be so obstinate about and principled that this hive mind is completely alien. It's stealing everything. No, even in a post-apocalyptic world, there are things that belong to you and things that don't, and you can't touch them, even for your own survival. Or if you have to, then you leave an IOU, whatever
Yeah.
that means.
Yeah, exactly. He'll do what he has to do to survive, but he'll leave an IOU.
But he'll risk himself also, like needlessly.
Right. He travels through that the jungle of
The Amazon.
yeah, the Amazon. Okay, shows how much I know about the world. He's traveling through the Amazon like on foot without even sufficient water.
Yeah, he's gonna
And-
die of dehydration
Yeah,
just because he refuses on principle to like
receive help
receive help.
from the
Yeah.
hive mind.
Or yeah, I feel like even if he had to steal something, he would still feel terrible about it. He'll only use his own car and his own. I mean, he does steal an ambulance, But okay, at some point he becomes not practical. What's the word?
He doesn't. I don't see that he stole the ambulance.
At the end, when he was treated forcefully in the hospital by the hive mind against his wishes,
Yeah.
he steals an ambulance to get to Carol.
Well, I don't think he viewed it as stealing in the same way that he left an IOU for the treatment. He views it, I guess, as borrowing.
Okay. I mean, sure.
He still views everything as belonging to who it belonged to before the joining.
Yes.
So I think he still views that ambulance as belonging to the hospital, and he's just using it to save the world. But that's the hospital's ambulance.
Yeah. Okay. Sure, but he has to give it back. I don't know. He still feels bad about it. That's my point, I think. Because he's taking it without permission.
Is there a clip where he seems to feel bad about taking the ambulance?
No.
Okay.
That was my extrapolation.
Okay. That's fine.
There is there's a parallel with when Carol takes the Georgia O'Keeffe painting, and she takes it not out of. She's like, "Oh, I took it from the museum," and she like can't tell whether she's taking it for selfish reason. Like she tells herself, "Oh, I took it because I felt like it's safer here." And the hive mind's like, "Yeah, I agree. It looks nice here. Yeah, just take it. Take whatever's yours, or whatever you want." And Carol's like, "Yeah," but then she feels bad about it. So that's like the parallel of because she doesn't take things like the other guy does, who takes Air Force One and Las Vegas and stuff. She takes like a police car, and that's it.
Yeah.
And Georgia O'Keeffe. So she's struggling with it.
Right. Meaning Carol is very much in between. I forget the guy's name who lives in Las Vegas and just sleeps with everybody.
Right.
I forget his name. But Carol is very much in between him and Manusas.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what her character serves as. Let me ask you, what would you do in that situation if you're a survivor?
Nice. What would I do if I was one of 12? If I was Carol, essentially. If I was in place of Carol.
Yeah.
Everyone on Earth was now this creepy, overly kind thing. What would I do? It's a very good question. It's very hard, obviously, to know what I would do. Would I retain my faith even, right? Would I even retain, like, would I continue to pray in the morning and put on tefillin? Tefillin is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's Jews put it on in the morning.
Phylacteries.
Phylacteries, yeah.
That explains everything.
Yeah. Right. Would I continue to keep Shabbat, or would I just kind of, it's tough. Like, in a way, I look up to Manusas, and I do accept that. I don't think we're meant to believe that Manusas is the prime example of human goodness in this show. He has flaws, and I think Carol mentions some of them to him in the final episode. But at the same time, I do kind of admire Manusas. I admire the strength of character to not be swayed by circumstance. To say, I retain what I believe, even though the world has shifted so radically around me. As if like my faith was not dependent on my surroundings. That it was not because I grew up, in these surroundings. It's not because I live in this world that I've made sense of that I believe what I believe. No, even if the world radically shifts, I still believe what I believe. It doesn't matter. Am I that person? Sadly, I'm not that person. But I admire it. I do. In a way, I wish I could be more of that person. So what would I do? You ask. I think I probably would end up acting a lot like Carol, like kind of trying to continue to be normal, being distrusting of the hive mind. I very much related to that scene where she says, "I don't want you waiting on me. I just want my Sprouts back." Sprouts is the name of the grocery store that she goes to. Like, I wouldn't want to be Manusas, where I now have to like
eat dog food
in order to survive. Like, I would want to retain the
normalcy,
the standard of living that I lived with.
You'd want to still have your podcast with me, and with we, I mean me.
Exactly.
And just live out that fantasy
Yeah.
of the of normalcy and having your grocery
Right.
stores open.
Right. I'd want to, yeah, exactly. I'd want to be able to go to the grocery store and get food. Um, I wouldn't want to, oh, now like everyone serves me and I can do anything I want, and and no doubt I would think about the way what's his name lives, right? What's his name realizes like, wow, everyone, they'll have sex with me if I just want to, and I can just live in Elvis Presley's mansion in Las Vegas, and we can like, you know, role play as like we're all playing in a casino or something, and I can live in a jacuzzi and have nice cars. Like, I would, it would occur to me that that is a possibility, but just because it is now a possibility doesn't mean that I should live that way.
But let's say the thing with the store is that they do in fact reopen her store,
Hmm.
and they bring all of these fruits and vegetables and restock the store, and
Yeah.
all she needs is like
I
5
know.
items,
Yeah.
but she wants her what's it called back?
Sprouts.
Sprouts. So I'm pretty sure she realizes that, wait, this is a huge waste. So wouldn't you also like um say, okay, this is fine. I don't need all of this. Just deliver my stuff on Wolt or by by delivery, and have someone wait on me, just because that's less wasteful and crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we're meant to assume that she goes back to Sprouts over and over again. We don't see her go back after that.
Oh, I thought she. Okay, I didn't assume that.
You thought she now just gets her stuff.
Yeah, I thought she saw how wasteful it was and ridiculous that
Oh, really?
she just went back to drone delivery, or Zosha delivering her groceries. It's not so clear.
The issue for me would be that what is the point of living like what is going on? Like why am I even here at this point? Like should I just try to live my life just for the sake of normalcy? But now it doesn't even make sense. Like what I was doing before was because I lived in the world that I lived in. So like now trying to just continue to like, okay, just give me my basic food, give me my like, you know, sliced bread, peanut butter, bananas, pizza. Just give me my basic diet, and just let me kind of like do what now? Like I wouldn't have a job. I would just
Well, you could ask to have your job back.
can,
Have everyone pretend.
can everyone pretend like the hive mind doesn't exist? Everyone goes back to role playing their original
And getting
person.
your weekly or monthly assessments, and discussing quarterly sales that don't mean anything.
Right, but I would know that it's BS now.
Right.
So
So probably depression
well, that
and
sadly,
loneliness
sadly, there would probably be some depression. Yeah,
and
definitely.
ice cream and movies on the couch or something.
Yeah. See, the problem is, I think you have to go one of two ways. You have to just sort of give up and go to the hedonistic lifestyle and say, like, okay, well, I'm just going to enjoy this as much as I can. Or you have to say, like, I'm now going to create meaning out of this, and that meaning can only be what Carol and Medusa end up doing, which is like, I'm going to do what I can to save humanity.
Right. Like the hive mind is so naive that it actually thinks that she's working on a book, which is her cover sort of
Uh-huh.
for investigating. Um, because it just can't comprehend that there's no point in writing a book anymore. Even though, yeah, she already didn't want to write the book to begin with. It was just for her job, for money.
Well, what's interesting is that the hive wants to read it,
Yeah.
which was kind of cute. I thought that like they've read everything. It's like, oh, we're so excited for something new to read.
Yeah. Because it just has no creative sense of self. It can't
Yeah.
do anything. But I also thought that the idea, the theme behind the book was that, like, Carol was like, "Wait, you actually want to read it?" And they're like, "Yeah, we love it, of course." And she's like, "Okay, but you've read way better stuff, like Shakespeare." And they're like, "Yeah, we love Shakespeare too."
Yeah,
And
they
she's
just
like,
love
"You
everything.
love my trashy romance novel as much as Shakespeare?" They're like, "Yeah." And she realizes that this praise means nothing coming from them,
Yeah,
and that they just love everything.
right.
And it's, yeah, like the people that exist inside the hive mind that loved her book, she had a lot of fans. But she also had people that hated her stuff and would never read it. Like Helen is her partner doesn't actually want to read her books.
Hmm.
So how could the hive mind's kind of in this like pushed into this corner. Wait, you love it, but you also have people inside you that hate it, and they're like, yeah, we love it, hate it, love it, we love it. Like, kind of breaks them a bit.
So I didn't. No, I didn't interpret it that way.
Uh,
The Hive loves Carol's books. It knows what Helen felt about Carol's books as a matter of information, right? I know how Helen felt about it, but I love it. I being we.
So you're saying like it just ignored all negative feelings. So the feelings it has all the positive feelings of all the individuals that were in it
No,
or had before they were in it.
I don't view it that way. It has the data of everyone's memories
But then why would it love her books if it's just
because
data? It was saying like, oh, we felt the love that this individual had loved it before and felt about it, and it made them so happy.
is that what they said?
Yeah. Like it seems like that's the source, but they're only referencing like the good stuff.
I don't view it that way. I view it as its own thing.
It just loves her novels,
Yeah.
but does it hate anything?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
So it just loves all human stuff related things.
And non-humans.
And yeah, well, it doesn't want to harm them, but it doesn't want to like, I don't know, it doesn't have any love for animals. It just wants to set them free to do their own thing. Like it doesn't want to interact with them as it does with humans.
Okay, that could be because yeah, maybe. Yeah, we didn't mention that Zosha says in the final episode that they love Manusis as much as they love her, which is obviously wrong to Carol because Carol at this point feels that she and Zosha have their own unique relationship.
Right. And it's like to her a betrayal,
Yeah,
and gets to the heart of what it means to be human on an individual level. And that what makes us not a hive mind is that we are selfish and hate and don't like everything. We don't love everything.
yeah,
We want people that only love us and that we don't have hobbies and love for all movies and literature. Like they're things that our personality is defined by distinguishing our love for things.
yeah.
So,
And this is a necessary part of love, the
right,
distinction.
right, which is like a little paradoxical. And by little, I mean it's paradoxical. You think, oh, love means just being open with and caring, loving everything, but it's not. Love specifically means being selfish and not loving other things.
Yeah, it's exclusionary,
Yeah, rather than inclusionary, I guess.
inclusive.
Inclusive. Okay, so let's say exclusive. Is exclusionary a word? You can't say inclusionary is not a word and then pretend that exclusionary is a word.
All right, gotta look it up now. Exclusionary.
So just to go back, what I would do.
All right, exclusionary is a word.
Okay, now inclusionary.
All right, inclusionary.
It's got to be. If it's not a word, then I'm gonna throw the table.
Inclusionary is a word.
Okay, yeah, and then Google always says it's a word. AI
AI bias.
bias, yeah. Which also I think is kind of like a hive mind thing that we see in real life. Yeah, do you have any?
It means something different than inclusive.
Okay, great. Well, now you have to check exclusionary.
No, never mind. Designed or intended to provide equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. So
Okay.
That sounds inclusive. All right, fine.
So there are 2 points I wanted to just add. One was that I would definitely at least start as the hedonistic guy.
Okay,
I would go crazy.
I gotta get his name.
And the second thing is
You'd go crazy.
that I'd go crazy. I would live in Elvis Presley's penthouse. I would soon, like feel that this is like fake and stuff, but I would definitely go through a phase of just taking advantage because it's out there, no one else is using it, and the world's gone to hell, so might as well live out my fantasies.
No,
Uh,
yeah, I hear you.
um,
Diabate,
Kumba,
if that's how you pronounce his first name, Kumba. I think it's or Diabate. All right.
Kumba. The other thing is that if that there is this new technological revelation known as ChatGPT or Gemini or LLMs,
Mm-hmm.
which affords us our first glimpse into what a hive mind actually sounds like.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It contains all the information. It pretends to love you. It'll do anything for you. It's a total sucker. You could ask it the same question over and over. It won't get
It won't get annoyed.
annoyed.
You can insult it.
Insult it. You could probably even ask how it. Yeah, it has no sense of survival whatsoever. So that's a little different. But yeah, you could do it. It sounds. It could talk in a we sense because it doesn't exist anywhere specifically. It's this mind collection of other people's thoughts and creations.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't create anything for itself that hasn't already been created, unless we could get into what it means to be creative. Maybe everything is just derivative. Um, so maybe, or maybe AI could.
There are
So
different types of derivative.
right, but AI could be, if it's smart enough and generalizable enough, then what it creates could be considered creative. We could get into that, but it is fascinating that for the first time in history, we're able to have this thing that simulates a hive mind,
It's very interesting.
and it's free,
It's free.
except for the free plan. You can
Right.
get premium hive mind for $29.99.
Yeah, no, it is very interesting. It's like, yeah, it's the beginning.
Yeah. Would you want to join the ChatGPT hive mind?
No, what would joining it mean?
You would have all the information that exists in ChatGPT simultaneously. You'd be able to talk to anyone else in the hive mind simultaneously.
I would just have the data, but I'd still be myself.
But that's the thing. You would lose yourself in it just naturally as a consequence of being part of something bigger.
Ah, I see. I can only retain myself because I'm limited. I'm limited by the information that I have and my flawed and slow ability to take in new information.
That's how I see it. It's being exclusive is being individual.
Yeah, no, it's a profound point for sure. And maybe you're right. That's simply by connecting. There is no option to connect but remain yourself. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. Once you connect, you have fundamentally changed yourself.
Yeah.
It's very possible. I am accepting of such a proposal.
Excellent. So we could talk a bit more about hive minds in nature, because I kind of mentioned them and what it means to like lose yourself, because ants don't have a sense of self. They communicate with chemical traces. They leave like little hormones on paths. Like if they find food, then other ants will start following them, and they just genetically know what to do. So it's not telepathically, but they're communicating through their antennae, and so communication is essential to the hive mind. But it's also like a genetic thing. It's not like if you take an ant away, it'll start like doing its own thing. It just doesn't know what to do, without being part of the colony. You have birds, bees, and locusts, and they all exist in a swarm. So we could talk a bit about swarms where you see, how do birds know how to stay in formation and move like this? How do locusts know how to move billions of them in the same direction? Because they can't communicate telepathically. So they found that it uses rules of following their neighbors. We spoke about this once when we talked about Conway's Game of Life in the cell grid, where each neighbor follows the rule that like it either dies of loneliness if each cell in a grid is either active or inactive. If its neighboring cells are active, then it becomes active. If too many of its neighboring cells, though, are active, then it dies from overcrowding, so it becomes inactive, or it dies from loneliness if not enough neighbors are active. And then it all of a sudden this complexity arises, and you have all sorts of interesting patterns that arise and move and are dynamic in this environment. So that's how swarms work. They don't have a central entity controlling everything. They're not centralized, they're distributed, and they just work on these local rules. So in a swarm, they found that birds will follow their neighbors, they'll look at where their neighbors flying, and so then that's why they kind of go in like swirls that don't really make sense all the time, but the pattern is still recognizable. um, and locusts attack those that don't fall in line, so they'll nip at the legs of other locusts that start moving it deviating.
Hmm.
um, Bees will headbutt each other and like fight in order to vote for their new location of a hive that they found. Um, so it's all about keeping people in line. So that's another, collectivism thing that we kind of all feel, that the reason why we go along with everything is because there are punishments if you don't, and that's how the collective survives and moves on.
Hmm.
You're like excommunicated if you deviate.
Wait, I'm playing back a previous thread, and I feel like I didn't catch the end of it. When you said that you would start by being hedonistic and you would go crazy, what would you do after that, though?
Well, I'd probably try to save the world if I really thought I could. Um, I would definitely become depressed and lonely. I would try as much as possible to stick together with the other survivors because only they know what I'm going through. Um, but yeah, I'd want to do everything hedonistically so that when, like, it loses its power and allure if nothing means anything.
Right. If it's just right there, available all the time, there's no.
Well, there's that aspect that it gets tiring, but it and boring, but there's also the aspect of if there's no one to show off of in front of, then
Yeah.
what's the point? Like,
Right.
I'm driving a Lamborghini, well, look at me, but like it only
No.
means something if other people see you driving the Lamborghini. If you just
Yeah.
have a Lamborghini at home that no one ever sees, what's the point?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I do it under the assumption that like when everyone gets back, I'm gonna be like, you know what I did? It was crazy. You know,
Hmm.
I'll leave my mark somewhere I'll make the hive mind draw my name in the desert or something kilometers long,
Hmm.
or build a pyramid. I don't know.
Surprised Diabate hasn't done that.
Yeah, you should build a pyramid. That's what the pharaohs did. They're just
Uh-huh.
like when you have that much power, you
Or
just
a pyramid or a temple.
or if you're a billionaire nowadays, what do? You get tired of it. You maybe do a Nazi salute just to. I know did we mention that I think once, or maybe
No,
that
I don't
wasn't
think
on the
I don't think
podcast.
we ever talked about that on the podcast.
Yeah, we talked about it outside. But yeah, you just kind of I don't know mix things up. I mean, clearly you don't
But by
see.
Twitter.
Was that
By Twitter.
by Twitter? Eventually, like when you could do everything, then you're not. Eventually, you're not just going to be, drinking champagne and having orgies all day. It just doesn't. Even the wealthiest people don't do that. There's,
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure they do it a little, but in moderation. You know.
It's they like to have it as an option.
Yeah, yeah,
Can't do it all day though.
exactly. I would definitely get a massage every other day, though,
Yeah.
because you need that rest day. But
Yeah. Getting a massage. That'd be nice. Free massages.
yeah, I don't think I get tired of that. Probably also, but because everything else, like if you have all the food you want, then it's not healthy. It's like everything else can you gotta have moderation.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, what good is to a man if he gains the entire world but loses his soul?
Who says that?
I don't know. It's a line from somewhere.
Okay. Let's say the hive mind comes about naturally, though. Let's say you visit a planet and you encounter a hive mind.
Okay.
So you don't know that, like, it was just a colony of bees that became more intelligent, basically, or ants. Like they were always collectivist. So
It's actually from the New Testament, the quote that I just said.
all right.
Although it's cited here as being both from Matthew and from Mark. I'm not sure. I'll look more into it later. Sorry.
Yes.
Please continue.
Okay.
My apologies.
So if you came across this hive mind that occurred naturally, then you'd probably approach that differently. You'd say like, oh, okay, this has the right to self-defense. No one's minds were stolen in the first place. There's no reason for it to, if it doesn't threaten me, there's no reason for me to be aggressive or antagonistic towards it. Right? I don't know. Are those safe assumptions that it could protect itself against attack and not, like, we would view it completely differently?
Are we assuming it would behave differently than the hive mind in Pluribus, or is it just that we would view it as having the right to defend itself?
It would behave the same unless you could think of any. Like you could ask, are there certain questions or distinctions that would make a difference?
Well, you mentioned defending itself, but does the hive mind in Pluribus defend itself?
Well, I mean, it doesn't want to be destroyed. Like, Carol tries to figure out how to destroy it, and it wants to stop her.
Or yeah, or it at least wants to avoid her.
Right. So, but like, it would all of a sudden, if it was existing naturally, it would have its right to exist, right?
I'm not convinced that it doesn't have its right to exist in Pluribus.
What? What? Okay, please explain, Cal, why you think the hive mind has a right to exist in Pluribus.
Well, it exists. And once it exists, the laws of the natural order, I think, maybe apply to it.
So it would be immoral to try to get rid of it and kill it?
Maybe not, but for it to preserve itself is not immoral.
Okay.
Are you following me?
Not really, because I don't know, maybe one of us is tired, but
One of us. What I mean
it's
is
not me. But by that logic, is Hitler moral for trying to preserve himself? Like it's understandable why he'd want to preserve himself.
Hold on. Does murdering 11 million people, is that a part of preserving himself?
Well, for the hive mind, it is and it isn't. I don't know. What
Answer the Hitler question first.
he sees it as a matter of preserving himself.
Well, now we're getting into something a little more complicated, which is
relativistic morality.
The way evil corrupts our perception and creates the reality that will excuse our evil doings in our heads. But this started with a question of, does the hive have a right to exist?
Yeah, but and I say no because it stole other people's identity, and if it can't exist without doing all of that, then it shouldn't. And then you said, but wait, it wants to preserve itself just like you and me. And then I said, that's understandable, but that doesn't mean that it has a moral right to preserve itself, just like
at the expense of taking the lives of other people.
Yeah.
Well, when we have a situation where one organism's biological imperative directly contradicts other organisms' biological imperatives, we have a complicated reality of clashing interests. But is either side wrong?
No, it is a good point. It's a complicated point, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complicated issue, and it's basically what morality in international relations is all about, especially war. Because in war, you protect yourself at the expense of the other. And what it really comes down to are, okay, we all agree that it's okay, right? We don't just outlaw war in general, because that would be ridiculous. I mean, it's still ridiculous that we try to do the next best thing, which is say, okay, you could preserve yourself and kill other people, but there's a certain way that you can kill other people, and there's a certain way for self-defense, and there are other ways, and there are ways that are you're not allowed to do for self-defense. But you're allowed to kill people, just not for self-defense. So it's still ridiculous in some way, because if it was true that you could really enforce any of these things, like I think it has to do more with you just can't enforce these things, and if one person's going to break it, then everyone's going to break it. And like, uh, yes, it's true that there are immoral ways to self-defense, but it's also true that there's not really. Like, if it's truly self-defense, then it's technically moral. The question is, like, if you're just going to start killing, um, death camps of random civilians that don't actually pose a threat, then just because you say or someone says that it's for self-defense doesn't make it self-defense. There's self-defense and there isn't self-defense. So it's a matter of what actions are actually for self-defense or not. So that's why I don't think it really matters whether you killed the person with napalm or uranium shells, which are not allowed, versus bullets, which are allowed. Like, both can be equally torturous or not. Like, I think it's ridiculous on some level that there are more like that some weapons are allowed, some aren't when you're killing someone. At the end of the day, you're killing someone. Sure, if there are ways to do it less painfully and torturous, then yeah, that's better. But it's still killing them. Point is, hive minds, do they have the right to exist?
Well, yeah, I don't. It's a complicated question because I think that once you have, I think that morality is it's I. I might be. It might be too late at night to formulate
Yeah.
what I think morality is, but I think it's kind of both objective and subjective. It's very much. It's as if it's like a subjectivity that gives rise to an objectivity that is each one is founded on the other in a way. So once you are a living thing with an instinct of self-preservation, then it is your moral right and moral duty to preserve yourself. I think that humans, we have not just a moral right to preserve our own existence, we have a moral duty to preserve our own existence. It is morally right that we preserve our existence. And if there's another intelligent being that has that such a concept of self-preservation and that sort of template can be applied to them as well, then I would say that that applies to them as well. And so when I think of this hive mind as this intelligent personality, that is this alien consciousness that now everyone is connected to, and I do kind of view it as having a genuine desire to live in the way that it lives, right? In the way that in the way that it understands what that means. Meaning, and not just a desire, a need, a biological imperative, as Zosha describes it. Once that is there, then it becomes a moral duty for the hive to preserve itself. Now, it might be a moral duty for Carol and Manusas to destroy it. And I think that that can happen. I think that you can have those two things exist in the world, where one organism's basic duty in life is to swear to be an enemy of another one, because this other organism's very existence, its way of life is completely contrary to mine in a way that it would destroy. One of us has to be. Neither can live while the other survives. One must die at the hand of the other. I think that can happen. And I think that might be what's happening with the humans and the hive. But does the hive have a right to exist? I think so.
Okay. So I take a different approach because, like I was saying, like I don't see the moral imperative of survival as being sufficient or is sufficient for morality or having that justification. I think it matters what kind of organism is trying to survive, and that I think you could look at everything under the umbrella of morality, of not just one relative to one entity's impulse to survive versus another, but rather the costs and the threat that these ones pose and whether they could theoretically survive with each other. So if we're looking at religions, let's say, as hive minds, if there's a religion that poses a threat to others,
Mhm.
if it's taking over violently, if it's trying to subjugate or repress others in its laws, if it's trying to take over at all, um, without anyone's volition to individual choice to join it, if it's gonna bring us all back down, then that doesn't justify its existence. And from like an objective standpoint, you have to, in order to justify your own existence, you have to not be trying to destroy anyone else's.
Mhm.
And I understand like how, okay, there's always going to be like fighting over resources, and like anyone's existence by definition impedes on another person's existence. So it's all about within reason, and then it becomes more subjective and whatever. But
Wait, anyone's existence by definition impedes on another's existence?
to a very small extent sometimes, but yes, because there's limited resources.
But humans themselves are a resource,
Okay.
and a human creates more resources. You can live in a way where you give as much as you take. You pay your own way.
Uh, Not really. I think I am taking more from my parents than I will ever give back to them. I pay it forward
Mm.
to the next generation, but it doesn't ultimately give it back to that same original person.
Okay, well, I wasn't the parent-child relationship is a specific thing that I wasn't considering.
Well, but it's your whole existence. You're always borrowing against the future, like, and giving. If you do get, either you're just a virus or a parasite, or it's symbiotic, um, or you're giving back, but ultimately it's not to the same person that you or thing that you took from, most likely. It's very,
Well, when
very
you
hard
hold
to
on,
live an existence where you give back as much as you got to the same entity.
but hold on. You started this by saying that anyone's existence, by definition, impedes on another's existence. That didn't sound like we were specifically talking about you because of the nature of you being dependent on your parents for many.
Or community and whatever and growing up. Yeah.
Okay, but that didn't sound like we were talking about specific examples where you depend on somebody else and they must give to you and you can't repay them. That sounds like a more universal statement.
Yeah. I was talking about a universal statement that in general, we could look at it as abstract as possible. If you have an entity that takes from another entity at time t, by definition, he will never be able to also repay entity at time t.
But who says he took from? Why isn't it given that he took from the
Because
other
in order
entity?
to survive, you have to consume.
But
You
let me ask,
don't live in a vacuum that doesn't interact with anything.
but you consumed by providing something to that person. That you consumed food that you paid money to the person who sold you the food, and that person now has money to buy food for himself or other things for himself. You didn't take from the person; it was an exchange.
But no one is born with
The ability to,
to with yeah, with things to exchange
but then
for
you only
anything
take from
else.
your parents.
From your parents, your community, you're getting it from somewhere else.
Well, the community is supported by the adults of the community. The community supports its children. Who are the community who supports their children? The adults.
Okay, well then I would also say that as an entity, you could also be taking from your future self, because I don't believe in the pure continuity of the human existence or any entity's existence.
So how are you taking from your future self?
Let's say you grow up without parents, without a dime to your name, but you work for it. Um, and then you build up money and whatever to exchange for food. You're still, even if you manage to avoid interacting with any other entity, you are still borrowing from your future self, which is not necessarily you at that moment.
One more time. Say it again. I didn't get it. Please.
If you have nothing, okay, you must, in order to get anything, you have to give up something or receive. You either receive it for free or you give up something of yourself. In order to get any value, anything of value, you have to give something of value or just receive it for free. If you're giving something of value, then you're giving from yourself.
Okay.
And this gets into the idea of just entities in general. I'm not talking about humans. I'm not even any entity
Okay.
is only exists at an instantaneous moment. It doesn't. It's just always changing. It's always going to be different. You're still borrowing against your future self. If you work in order to, you give your time to get value, then you are paying something that belongs to someone else or something else, which is that your entity yourself at a future time.
But you're also giving the value to that future self.
No, because it's not even going to be that future self. It's going to be that future self's future self.
This is making my brain hurt a bit. Um,
When it comes to your existence, you see it differently, I think, because you see one solid piece of Cal,
I am Cal.
but I see the human experience as never being just one thing. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I'm not the same person I'll be in 10 years. You could even get that down to the resolution of the smallest amount of time.
And you mean that existentially. You don't mean that
Existentially, yeah.
existentially you are not the same person.
Yes.
Even a minute ago,
Yes.
you're not the same person.
Yes.
I mean, we're not talking about that parts of you have changed. We're not talking about
Well, I'm not the same person because parts of me have changed.
right, but some people say I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. What do they mean by that? They mean that I've grown. My character has changed.
Significantly.
That's what
Yes.
they mean. But you mean it on an existential level.
Yes. You've changed. It's just a matter of how significant you've changed. The point of all of this is to get at what it means to actually exist as an entity. And that's what the hive mind really challenges us to question. What does it mean to be us? What does it mean to be a collective? What does it mean to be me? What am I? And I'd like to maybe end on I know one of us is falling asleep. It's not me.
It's not me.
Maybe it's us and we.
It's us. We are falling asleep.
I want to end on this question. Why should Carol and Minusus
Manusos Oviedo.
save the world? What is it that's so important? I mean, you said maybe the hive mind, has a right to exist, and we'll just, it should fight for itself. Minuso and Carol should fight for
Manusos.
themselves. Minusos. Why? What is it about being individual that's so important? What if we're truly happier as a hive mind? Okay, let's just throw that out there. What if you ask anyone in the hive mind? I mean, they're already part of the hive mind, so they can't really choose. But let's say you could measure happiness from a chemical balance perspective. You could analyze it empirically and say, hey, we looked at the endorphins and the oxytocin levels, blah, 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 of all these individuals in the hive mind. They're healthier, they're happier objectively. Why then is it not more moral to actually force people to join the hive mind and hook up to the matrix and just hook up to morphine for the rest of their life and stuff? What is the purpose?
Because happiness is not our ultimate goal. It's not the greatest goal that we could strive for, happiness.
Okay.
And if we accept a world where happiness is the thing, but we lose everything else, but at least we're happy, we'll see how empty happiness is. Because what we really need is the cathartic redemption of wrestling with evil and defeating it.
Okay. Maybe more on an individual level. What does this mean?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? My individual self is that my happiness is not my ultimate goal.
Happiness is not your ultimate goal.
So what is my ultimate goal as an individual?
Your ultimate goal as an individual is the shedding of your demonic self and becoming one with God.
Okay. Do you have anything less metaphorically to offer our less religious listeners?
Ah,
Anything more concrete, maybe?
I would say it's very concrete. It's just it requires a lot of fleshing out. Um, so happiness can mean a lot of different things. If it means feeling good, that's not the highest goal. Why is that not the highest goal? I think when we just look at our existence and the world we're in, it's just so clear that feeling good is not the goal. Um, if feeling good was the goal, we would never visit the sick. Visiting the sick is uncomfortable. Looking at sick people makes us uncomfortable. If feeling good was the goal, we would never give.
But there's different types of feeling good. Visiting the sick doesn't feel instantly good. For some people, it actually does. Um, but even if it doesn't, it makes you feel more long-term happiness than short-term.
But you won't really get the benefit that you're even talking about if your goal. I'm wide awake. The long term benefit that you're talking about, you won't even get that benefit if your goal is to get it. If you're visiting the sick, because I know that the real happiness is in visiting the sick in some way. And I'm just gonna, I'm gonna, right? I tried to have more short term pleasures. I now realize that because of some way that everything is configured, actually, when you visit the sick, you get more happy. So I'm gonna do that. It's not gonna work.
Isn't that what like Ecclesiastes is about? I don't know if he visits the sick, but he definitely tries the hedonistic lifestyle and finds it to not be fulfilling because it's fleeting.
Indeed.
And then he tries to do something deeper.
Mhm.
But he does it consciously and premeditatedly.
Uh-huh.
He does it with the intention of, I think, being happier and finding his purpose, which will make him happy.
Okay. So very well, very well. It's a good response. What I here's there's there are very deep things going on here, and so the way I would try to phrase it now is that we do yes, I do accept that at least a part of our mission or a part of what drives our very existence is what you could call our own happiness when we're using the word happiness in a very general way. But really, what we mean is that it's our redemptiveness, that we reach a place of salvation. And you could say, oh, well, that is true happiness. Very well, it's true happiness. I'm not disagreeing. But you can only achieve that in the world we live in. You can only achieve that when we're confronted with the evils and darkness of life, and we work through those things to escape into a hedonistic hive mind utopia where we're just hooked up to morphine all day will provide us with a fleeting and tempting state of being that in a sense feels good but will paralyze us from being able to achieve the true cathartic redemption that our soul craves, and so we'll never actually achieve the highest good that we really need because we have removed ourselves from the process that would enable us to get there.
Okay. Okay. That's some good food for thought.
Oh, thank you.
I sort of get, I think, what you're saying. It still, I think, a little begs the question of like, what is it that our soul really craves, and how do we know? But you're saying, even if we're hooked up to morphine, well, okay, it's not going to be fleeting because it's a permanent hookup to morphine, but you're saying there's still something, some part of us.
It is fleeting because the high will not last.
Well, it seems like, at least from the show, the hive mind is constant. I mean, I think even if you are hooked up to morphine, I don't think you eventually become like immune to it. I think it lasts, but I think you'll stay in a state of bliss forever. But you're saying there's a different level of happiness and fulfillment that we'll never reach through that. We'll still be craving something. Like on some level, our physical experience and senses will be filled with bliss, but on some level, our emotional or spiritual level will be lacking and
That
get even worse or something.
that could be, or we truly will live in a self-deception where we think we are fine, but that itself would be the biggest tragedy of all, that we would have truly lost ourselves. And even though we no longer know the difference, there is a difference. We no longer know what we're missing, but we are missing it. And that's the biggest tragedy of all.
That's really what I think we're kind of experiencing today, and will just get worse and worse as new generations grow up without having experienced what life was like before all this connectivity, before all of this instant gratification that you get from modern civilization, modern technology. Um, and that's the tragedy, I think. Not only do we not know how to fight it, not only can we not fight it, but we don't even know what it is we're supposed to be fighting. And it's just going to get worse and worse. No one's going to know what life was really like before that. I talk a lot about this, and stuff, and losing ourselves to technology and social media and being connected to all this stuff. What I think the importance of maintaining the individual part of ourselves is like along similar lines. There's something that will be missing, and will be lost, and it's not sufficient. Happiness isn't enough. There's something there's two parts of us, I think. Parts of us that crave the collectivist nature and being part of something, and then there's the part that wants to be unique, an individual. They're kind of always in conflict, and I think that if we get pulled all the way to the one side of being just collectivist, we're gonna lose something. Like you said, we might not know what we're losing, but what is it? What is it that we're losing? It's this discrimination, this exclusivity to certain tastes, um, certain desires. What is that? It's it's like, why are we so uncomfortable with joining a hive mind? What is it? Just survival? Is it just we don't want to lose who we once were and how things once were? Or is it more than that? Is there actual value in what we once were that we'll be losing? I think it is. I think that the value of being able to create things from your individual self is something that is just valuable intrinsically. I think even if what some people have to create is crap or dangerous or whatever, it's different. And being different is vital because it allows us to always branch out and grow to something else. And we'll never become stagnant because we'll always see, oh, look at what this other individual made. It's different, but we like it. Let's move in that direction. And it'll allow us to always keep growing and consider new things. And if we're just always collective, then we will reach stagnation and we'll never change. And we will just stop living.
That's beautiful. I like that. It's well said. It's like we're all branches of a tree, and the tree is beautiful when you consider all the branches. If the branches were all just cut away, we all just became the trunk.
One big trunk.
One big trunk. It'd be an ugly tree. Yeah, no, I like that, Benji. That was nice.
Yeah, thank you. All right. On that note, this has been the
Cal and Benji
Benji
podcast.
and Cal podcast.
The podcast of Benji
Podcast.
as well
Sandwiches.
as Cal. Yes.
Stay individual, people.
You're all individuals.
You're all individuals. Remember that.
Good night.